Hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? I haven't seen you in so long.
I know, right? With this whole virtual thing, it's like I don't even remember faces anymore.
I know. I know. It's been so different, like not being able to connect with the right people that I want to see, including you.
I know, and it's been so hard
Yeah.
with this pandemic, but I hope you're staying safe. And I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you about your work and your company because you do a lot of great things.
Of
So.
course. Yes, I'm excited to be here and chat.
All right, so let's get right into it. Of course, we were just talking about this a little bit before about COVID-19 and the pandemic. How have you been dealing with everything in regards to COVID-19 and how did it impact your life?
Um, it's been so when it first started, I was still working in a school. So being with students and managing that shift was like so difficult, right?
Hmm.
Because there's my own anxieties that are naturally showing up about what's happening, what is this going to look like, while also trying to manage the anxieties and the transition for a bunch of younger people.
Hmm.
So it was when it started, it was very overwhelming. A lot of concern for the safety and well-being of our young people, right? So I was a school social worker, and just thinking of what my students can be going through
Hmm.
now, having to be at home, what do they have access to, what they would do they not have access to, all that kind of stuff. So that was difficult, right, during that time. After transitioning from that role, it did allow me to really feel like I could thrive within my own business. So fortunately, it did allow me to expand my reach and my capabilities to work directly with students in my company through this virtual environment, right? So before I was doing a lot of in-person work, trying to go onto different campuses of different organizations in person. But I can kind of cut through some of that middleman stuff with the virtual environment by just being able to host things on Zoom or my own platform so that I can reach students all over the nation, honestly. So I think it's within my emotional space, right? It's been difficult. In my business space, it's been pretty great. And then sometimes even just balancing that is really hard, right? Like, how do I feel
Yeah.
the fact that, like, it's a very serious pandemic that's happening, but at the same time recognizing that it's actually allowing parts of my own life to like thrive and grow. So being able to hold space for both of those things at the same time can be hard and challenging for me sometimes. Mm.
Yeah, and I know you did mention a couple of challenges, but like what personal challenge or what was the biggest lesson you learned from like quarantine and you're continuing to learn because the pandemic isn't over? Any lessons that you've picked up so far?
So, it's a lesson that I know I need to learn, and I'm still working at it. But it's to slow down, right?
Hmm.
What I ended up doing, so I'm an overcommitter. I sign up for all of the things. I do all of the things. So I go all of the places. So with the pandemic, I was like, oh, I can't do all that stuff, right? You have to slow yourself down.
Hmm.
And it's who I've always been. I've always been the person who's doing all of the things and going everywhere, right? Since I was a kid, I was always doing so many things. So it allowed me and told me like to slow down, which is hard for me. It's very hard to do. I ended up pivoting and like ended up signing myself up for other stuff to kind of make up for it. But I recognize that it's still a work in progress for me. But I think that is honestly like one of the biggest things. It's like you don't have to be involved in everything. You don't have to go everywhere. A lot of the things that I'm looking for out of my life and the joy can just come from the simplicity of just being still, of just being with the people that I love and the people that I enjoy. So that is, I think, one of the bigger things that I've learned.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like we used to live in a world where everything was just fast paced. We never really like slowed down and thought about like ourselves, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like the pandemic was such a blessing in that sense.
Yes.
But like always like of course there's been negatives about COVID-19, but I guess that's been one positive. Any other positives that you've come to realize about this whole pandemic?
I think it's allowed all of us, but mostly definitely me to get creative in the ways that I connect with people, right?
Hmm.
That I don't have to physically go to locations, right? But how valuable phone calls, texts, Zoom happy hours can be that still allow for that ability to connect with people that you love. I've definitely connected people that I haven't talked to in a while, right? People that are across the country, in other countries, because everyone just had more time, right? I
Right.
think the excuse given before was like, oh, I wish I could, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. Um, and I think it just allowed us to have more time to do that. And I think it was also like an eye opener, right? Is that
Yeah.
we recognize that at any point, like our world can turn upside down. So we want to be intentional about the time that we get to connect with the people that we love and the people in our life. And I think that's what allowed me to make sure that I'm taking time to do.
Totally. And what is one thing you want to do when we get back to normal?
Um,
Or some things. I know it can be hard to choose one because we've been so confined.
I mean, I honestly, I miss traveling. I was
Hmm.
supposed to be going to Costa Rica tomorrow.
Oh
I literally
man, that
changed the flight
sucks.
today. I changed it today. I was like, I'm not going. I was like, I should probably suck it up and come to terms with it. So
You'll
I was
make
going
your
to
own
Costa Rica
Costa
to,
Rica.
huh?
You'll make your own Costa Rica at home.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? We should get creative, and make some like dishes and stuff. But I really do. I miss traveling. I think when this time last year, right? I knew that this was the life I wanted in terms of being able to have my flexibility in my schedule, right? Because I always envisioned like literally being able to work from anywhere. I was like, I can go to the Caribbean, I can go to California, all I need is a computer and some Wi-Fi, and I can get work done. That is like what I was pushing for and working for literally like months and months and months. And
Hmm.
then now it's like, okay, I have flexibility in my schedule because I am work for myself. I can create my own schedule, but I can't go anywhere. Right? I'm like, dang it, like I can't go anywhere. But even like the smaller things of like, I used to love. I mean, I still do, but like, I used to love just going down the street to like my favorite coffee shop here in town and just working, bringing my computer, bringing my headphones. They knew me, I knew them. Like that type of stuff was also super meaningful and important.
Yeah.
So you can just miss that. Like, so whenever it does come back to it, like I'm literally just gonna go to the coffee shop with my headphones and my computer, just so I can like sit there, just a different environment and work in a different space. But I really do miss traveling. I miss it so much.
Totally. And I bet like the flights will either go up or will either go down after this pandemic. So we're gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I changed my flight. I changed it to February, which is still optimistic. I don't think it's gonna get much sooner. But they got like they started getting crazy prices for like this, and I'm like, wait. You guys are like shooting really far right now. Like, who's paying this? So I'm hoping that when February comes, I need to push it again, and that the
Hmm.
flights gonna kind of come back down to a reasonable price.
True. Fingers crossed that we
Yeah,
all
because
can
I'm dying to go to
travel.
Costa Rica. I want to go to Costa Rica so bad.
What were you planning to do? Like some of the things.
So it's funny. So I'm a person where like I am like I will want to go to a place, but I don't like plan or have anything like I really want to do there. I just want to go there. So like for years I wanted to go to Chicago. Like I was dying to go to Chicago. Like everyone's like, "Where's one city you want to go?" I'm like, "Chicago, Chicago, Chicago." So I went there for my birthday one year, and then everyone's like, "We're here. Like, what's on your list?" I was like, "Oh, I don't have a list. I just wanted to be here." Like, I think it's the same with Costa Rica. Like, I don't have like an agenda or an itinerary. Like all these things I want to do. I just
Hmm.
literally want to go to Costa Rica. I want to see the beauty. I just want to be. I just want to be there. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like once you get to the place, it's kind of like you see what you do there, but it's just getting there. That's important.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So before I'm gonna start talking a little bit more about the mental health and your work. Just for those that are tuning in, if any of you have any questions you'd like to ask Christina, feel free to drop them in the comments. Why did you choose to work in the student mental health sector and what inspired you?
So I think so. It started. I guess I can go back to when I was living in Los Angeles. I was working in an elementary school out there, more on the academic front, kind of helping with the students who were struggling with their academics, right, where they just needed more support. So I was doing small groups. We ran an after-school program, like all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I knew that at the time, I wanted to go to medical school.
Hmm.
But as I was doing this, I was like, medical school is like not my thing. Um, and I knew that I wanted to work in education, but I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher. I was like, that is not my jam either. And as I kind of reflected on the experience, I thought of, well, what is a need, right? Where is the need that exists within the student population that is not being fulfilled, right? And I reflected on the students that I worked with, and I was like, I think there's definitely a space for mental health. I still wasn't 100% sure that's what it was until I started my master's program, and I recognized that I really missed working with students, right? And I think
Yeah.
just over time, it just evolved into me interning back into schools. My subsequent jobs were within schools, so I was really starting to fine tune that like student mental health was my thing. And then of course the firsthand experiences, right? So seeing students like really struggle before my eyes and really struggle with their mental health, right? Where they're trying to, at the time I was, when I really thought about this, I was working with college students and they were just falling apart. Like they were trying, and I get it, right? They wanted to do the best, have the best grades and do really well in their classes, but they were developing really unhealthy coping skills and really unhealthy habits to deal with the academic pressures that they were facing. And I thought it was just so unfortunate that no one was helping students in the capacity that I was hoping to help them at that time, right? So there's like always those counseling spaces on campus and stuff like that, but sometimes those are over saturated with students, right?
Hmm.
So you can't really get into an appointment soon enough, or the quality of services aren't that great, or students just don't feel comfortable going, right? So I just made me really reflect on just recognizing that the way that we approach mental health in general is backwards, right? It's very reactionary. We wait for a problem to arise and then we then say, cool, let's get you some help because you're struggling, versus let's set everybody up with some skills and strategies so that they have a strong foundation. And then if they've tried those skills and strategies and they're still not working, what have you, then there's that support that's available to them, but it shouldn't be reserved for people. So that continues to be my motivation, is that I just saw firsthand and continue to see firsthand students really struggling with their mental health, and the system that's set up currently for students is not working. So I was like, I need to make a difference. I need to do something that can help close that gap.
Totally. And like you said, you originally pre-med. What made you go into pre-med at the first time?
Yeah. So I was a psych major, right? It was,
Hmm.
I went to, as an undergrad, I was a psych major. Um, I knew that I liked helping people, right? Like, I knew that I was always going to be in some kind of career that was like service based, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was a psych major, I knew that I didn't want to be a therapist. Yet here I am as a therapist. I was like, I don't want to be a therapist, but I do want to do something that is like of service to people. And honestly, like for me, psychology was super easy. So like, let's do something that's a challenge. And I was like, medicine, right? Like I can definitely see myself being a doctor. Um, it's intriguing, it's challenging, it provides the right type of challenge that I like, but also having the people, the opportunity to like work directly with people, right?
Yeah.
So I did the whole, kit and caboodle of all the classes, taking the MCATs, applying to medical school. And it was while I was like going on interviews for medical school, I was just like, I really hope they don't ask me why I want to be a doctor. Cause I just didn't really like, I don't know, I just felt like I could do it. I didn't like have a burning passion for it, right? Like the way that I can talk about student mental health now, I can talk about it so long. Like medicine, I was just like, yeah, I can finagle something, but I knew that in my heart, it wasn't something that I really felt like I was passionate about. And then I had met a friend's boyfriend's father who was a physician at the time. And I was kind of telling him that I was like in this dilemma. I was like, oh yeah, I'm currently applying for medical school. And he was like, the medicine is changing. It's not really what it was. And there's just ends up being just so much of it ends up being political. It gets really difficult to be in. So he was like, can you see yourself being equally happy doing something else? And I was like, yes. And he was like, do that. And I was like, okay. And here we are.
Wow, what a journey. Because some students they find themselves in the same position as well, and they don't know what to do with their lives exactly.
And I think a lot of it has to do with parental pressures, right? Like I think a
Hmm.
lot of or societal pressures, right?
Hmm.
Like of this status of I need to be something at the top, right? And how much
Right.
we put doctors and physicians on a pedestal makes it seem like that's the attainable goal. Like doctors, lawyers, engineers, like all these people that we put like up here. And there's nothing wrong with those people that go into that profession, right? We obviously need them in our society. But I
Right.
think for us psychologically, when we put that self-imposed pressure on us, or parents are putting that pressure on us, it feels like we're kind of stuck and pigeonholed into a direction for our life, right?
Hmm.
And that's what got so hard, is that like because I was pre-med when I was working out of college, I took a lot of the pre-meds like under my wings. Like I get it, like this stuff is hard. These classes are no joke, right?
Yeah.
I was setting up like all of these different conferences for them to travel to, and like all of this stuff, because I was like, you guys need support. Like this is not an easy journey, right? Especially because they were first gen low income college students, like first in their families to do this kind of stuff. You need support.
Hmm.
But it was some of those were those hard conversations, right, where they're really struggling with their pre med classes, And it's a conversation of like, why are we doing this, right? You've taken bio 3 times and failed it 3 times. Like, it's not a situation where like the fourth time around, like you're finally gonna get it. Like, you know what I'm saying? And with the trajectory of medical school, like all of those things matter, right? Your science GPA is really important, right? So it was when I sat down with some of the students, it was because some of it was family and some of them was just like, because I want to make money. Like that's the thing where I gotta like make money to support my family, right? Or just I just want to make a lot of money, right? So
Yeah.
then it's like, well, you can do that in so many other ways, right?
Hmm.
Don't drag yourself through organic chemistry and like fail 3 times. Like let's look at what else we can do. Like what are you really passionate about? What do you really want to do?
Right.
Um, Everything's going to take hard work. I'm not going to say choose the easy route and just do something that you can just kick your feet up and chill, right? But you're going to feel more motivated to do it when you really have this passion for it, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the key determinant as to like which kind of career path you want to go.
Right, and that's great advice for those that are connecting because, as I said, some students don't know what they want to do and they're kind of
Yeah.
pressured into choosing a certain career because of their family or because of the money aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a prime example of that. So, you also mentioned you went to California and you served in the AmeriCorps program. Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
me a little bit more about your experience in that program?
Yeah, literally, like literally changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
So I was right applying to medical school and I was taking a gap year.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed something to do in this in between, right? Of the year between graduating and then starting medical school that subsequent like school year. Um, and I just wanted something different. I'm a person who likes change. So even when I was like, for example, picking my undergrad, I didn't want to stay in New Jersey. I lied to my mom and I told her I didn't get into any schools in New Jersey because I didn't want to go to any school in New Jersey. I was like, I need to do something different. Um, Ideally, I wanted to go down to Florida, but that didn't. She was just like, you can't go that far. I was like, sure, whatever. So I went to Philly. So then I was like, well, now I'm getting older. I can make my own decisions, right? I'm 21 at the time. Yeah. I just always just wanted to go to California, right? Like, who doesn't? It's
Right.
beautiful, it's warm, right? But it was scary because I didn't know anybody in California. Everybody I knew was within this tri-state area. The furthest anyone has been was my sister who went to Virginia for school. Um, but I don't know, it just felt right. And I was like, it's easier if you have something lined up, right? Like if versus if I just hopped on a plane and flew there and just like walking around the streets of like LA, like trying to find a job. I had something set up which is kind of like easier. Anytime like you go to someplace different, so it's easier if you have uh, um, a formalized like thing to be doing, like school or a program, right? So I knew that I was joining 300 other like 20 something year olds, you know. So I was like, okay, this sounds like it's gonna be fun. But it was scary, right? My mom was like, when I told her, she was like, no, and I was like respectfully, I wasn't asking you, right? Like I made a decision. This is what I'm going to do. She was not happy about it, but I would put it on her. I'm like, I'm technically kind of following your suit, right? My mom was the first in her family to come to America from Jamaica. So like you left your whole family and went to a different country. I'm still at least in the country, right? She didn't buy that either. She was like, nice try. But it was just like a pull, right? A pull that I had that I really wanted to do. And um, it was just different. Like I just like to always try different things. I've never worked in that capacity with students, and I just wanted to give it a go. Right. I knew that education was important for my development. So having a part of my trajectory that allowed me to work with students was helpful. Right. And you get money for education, right? When you do AmeriCorps, you can get discounts on tuition for graduate school. And the one I did, you don't have to graduate college, right? So some people took gap years in between high school and college. You used to be 18. Some people took gap years in between like their sophomore year and junior year of college because they just needed a break. But I think for me, it was just really cool to meet people from all over, right? Like my roommate, she was from relatively the same area in Philly. But I met people from Kentucky, obviously California, Chicago, South Dakota, just all over. And I think that was really cool too. It's like you get to not just live somewhere different, just meet people from all over the country, and together struggle because it was a really hard program. So you're kind of like struggling together. and doing this program together, but it was also so much fun, right? Like everyone's, you know, young and 20s and in California. So while it was hard financially, it was hard emotionally because the work was very tiring. It was the best decision, hands down, I've probably ever made in my life because one, it allowed me to change the trajectory of my career, but two, the people I've met, right? My two best friends are still the people that I met there. My
Oh.
roommate that I lived with when I was there, and then my other friend, right? I'm
Hmm.
still pretty close with a lot of them that I met in California, and I left there in 2013. And we're still pretty close. So I think just the opportunity, I always encourage students to, if they have the opportunity to go somewhere else outside of where they grew up, do it. Because that is how you really like grow who you are. It's almost impossible to really grow when you stay in the same environment, right? Hence the comfort zone, right? You can't grow in your comfort zone. And doing something like leaving your state and having to force yourself to grow up, right? To take care of yourself. You don't have mom living 20, 30 minutes away just to go run to. That you really have to become independent and step into your own and also discover who you are. Leaving your home environment will allow you to do that. It was so worthwhile.
Wow, that's great. And some people like the fear probably won't let them, but it's a great learning experience going to another
Mm-hmm.
place. But you were also a first generation college student. What kind of obstacles did you face along your way?
As a first gen college student, which was pretty dope that the first gen college day was just this past weekend,
Yeah.
which was so important. But I think the biggest, literally to this day, the biggest issue of being a first gen college student for me was money, and not like I can't afford it. It was not understanding loans. So I picked my college because they gave me the most money. I
Hmm.
did not factor in that they were the most expensive. So I graduated with a crap ton of student loans that I could have avoided, right? But my sister had gone to school the year before me. So we were both still like figuring this out. She went to Virginia. I was going to school in Philly. So it was just so new for us trying to figure this out. But that was the biggest challenge was like, I am dumping so much money, but like, you don't see it, right? They send you stuff, you hit a button, you read the promissory notes, you read all this stuff that's riddled with language you don't understand.
Hmm.
And then you hit accept, and then your tuition's paid and you go about your life, right? Uh, Plus also paying for things, right? I got my first credit card on campus like the first week because I needed to get textbooks. My mom was like, well, I guess you got to get a credit card. And I worked. I started working when I was 15 years old, right? But all my money for that moment, right, when I was working was going towards paying for the dorm stuff, right? My sheets, my laptop, like all of those things that I needed is what I saved for. So when now I came for textbooks, when I did college, at least when I started, renting textbooks wasn't a thing. It just that became more popular towards the end of my college. So you actually had to buy textbooks. So each textbook is like $300, and you have 5 classes. My mom was like, "Good luck." Like, so that's where I got my first credit card, and I don't think I've literally. So I started college. I'm a little old in 2008. I, for the first time in my life, just paid off that credit card 2 months ago. 2 months ago. Yes.
What? That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yes. Correct, because they kind of kept building and building, and you're using it for this, and then of course, then you're just out and about, and you're doing life, and then you never really pay
Right.
it off or whatever. Literally, I got that credit card in 2008. I just paid it off 2 months ago.
That's
Yes.
crazy.
So I think that has been as a first gen student, like it's just so much to figure out by yourself, right? And so much to have to try and manage, because you don't have that guidance from somebody else who has really been through that or a parent who's been through that. A lot of the decisions I had to make for career paths, et cetera, was all up to me to decide, as well as some of those pressures, right? Even when I was like, hey, mom, I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. I'm going to be a social worker. She was like, haha, good one. And I was like, no, I'm serious. So I think that was the biggest, is just trying to navigate the financial pieces was the hardest thing, and continued to be one of the hardest things even as I grew into adulthood. I was really trying to figure that out myself.
Wow, that's great. And I feel like most first gen students can identify with that
Mm-hmm.
and struggling the financial aspect, understanding the school system, the educational system in this
Yeah.
country. But let's time jump a little bit to when you started your business, your company, Ignite EDU. from all your experience, what did you learn that made you want to start your company, and when did you actually start it?
So I actually got pushed just to start it by a friend, which I'm ever so grateful that she did push me to do it.
Hmm.
Um, so as I mentioned earlier, that like kind of reflecting on my experience with students and thinking through the gap that existed with student mental health, like something has to happen, right?
Yeah.
Coupled with I'd already been doing, teaching and doing workshops and presentations just within the formal role of my job at the time. So my colleague was like, you're so good at this. Like you connect so well with students, you connect really well with people. You're really good at just facilitating these kinds of conversations. You should do something yourself. I was like, nah, that's not like my thing, right? She was like, just give it a go. Like, just start like an Instagram, whatever. Yeah. So at the time I started with just thinking I would do like more of like a coaching, right? So it was called Student Success Coaching that I started back in 2018. My nose is so itchy. I don't know why. So I started that back in 2018, right? I think I always have to like scroll through my Instagram and like, when did I start this Instagram? But in 2018, it was called Student Success Coaching, and the goal was just to provide coaching services. And so it wasn't really where it is now. It was not anywhere in my purview. I was like, I'm just gonna do like some workshops, and I'll just just talk about mental health. I think at the time I also wasn't just on mental health. I wanted to do also academic success, so like helping students understand study plans, the study cycle, metacognition, right? Just really understanding the whole academic process as well.
Hmm.
So that was like how it started. And then it kind of morphed into student mental health as well as the academic success. And then we capped on financial literacy. And we're like, let's cover the areas. And I say let's at the time, it was me and two other people. So it started with me, and then I added on two people to cover these areas. And we're like, let's just cover the areas of education that people really don't get, like right financial literacy,
Yeah.
these underlying things of academics, right? Like how do you actually study? What does it actually mean to study, and what does that mean the process and the cycle, as well as mental health. But then again, as like time went on, and I was like, this feels too all over the place, right? I always go back to, as much as I use the downside or the horrible stuff that like Jeff Bezos is $1 billion industry does, or a man does with his workers. They're subjected to certain type of work conditions. What I appreciate about Amazon is that when they started, they were just books, right? They're like, we're going to get really good at books. And then as they got really good at books, then they added in the rest of the stuff, right? So
Hmm.
even now I go back to that. I can't start with too many things. I need to get really good at the one thing. And then as that builds, then I can maybe add in some more. That's how I was like, let me cut out the other stuff, and we're just going to do student mental health. Because I think at the core, if you have a really solid mental health foundation, you can do a lot of those other things. So I morphed into the Ignite EDU space. I was like, let me drop this student success coaching, mostly because it was a phrase that was being used everywhere. Like, so if I went to different colleges' websites, they had student success coaches, and different organizations had student success coaches. And I was like, I don't want it to be mixed in with all these other people. Let me
Hmm.
create my own different name. And I thought of what do I want people to feel when they think about this? I want them to feel ignited, right? And like energized, and really putting that into education, which has led to Ignite EDU. So here I am.
That's great. And I'm sure as a business owner, small business owner, you faced many challenges. Can you
Mhm.
name some of them? Can you share some of them?
The biggest is being a solopreneur, right? Meaning that I'm on my own, I'm doing this by myself, because it is the hardest thing to be the one person trying to do it all, right? Like I'm the person who's thinking of strategy, I'm thinking of marketing, I'm also executing, I'm delivering, I'm presenting, like I'm doing my accounting, I'm doing all of it, right? And it's a
Hmm.
lot.
Yeah.
Like it is a lot of brain energy to like put into all of this stuff, especially when you don't come from a business background. So that was also one of the biggest challenges is learning the landscape, right? Like I had to learn how to have a business mindset and to be a businesswoman. Um, my expertise being a licensed social worker, a certified social worker, can only get me so far. I need to know how to run an actual company. So I enlisted in a few things, different like courses, accelerators, different types of mentorship, etc. Um, but I think that has been the biggest challenge is that, as well as knowing the best way to deliver the services, right? Like I'm entering into a huge system of education, How do I infiltrate it? What does that look like? How do I make sure that I'm being effective, right?
Mhm.
Is this actually what people want? Like all of these questions, right? And then being the one to answer it all and figure it out, right, was a lot. Um, so I think even to this day, that continues to be one of the hardest pieces is um, being the one person that is running the show. It is exhausting,
And
especially
especially,
when I was trying to deal with a full-time job, right? When I had a full-time job and then still trying to build a company, that was very exhausting.
yeah, and also like knowing like the marketing skills and like social media, because I'm pretty sure social media plays a huge role in your company, right?
Mm-hmm. It does, and it's like I just finished up with a contract with an education marketing company who is helping me essentially refine my message, refine my audience. They created a 1 year editorial calendar. But I was like, what about post? Like, because that's the thing is like, how do you know, like, what's the visual? What's the graphics? What are the things that people want to hear about, know about, talk about, engage with? And it can take out like the fun of it, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are on social media because it's fun and we like it and we get to talk to people and like pictures and like watch videos. But when you're putting a business spin on it and like how can I make sure that this is engaging? How can I look at the analytics? Like all it doesn't feel as fun anymore. And you're like, well, now I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when people have a hobby and then they're like, when it starts to monetize, it doesn't feel as fun anymore. It's like that kind of stuff, right? So
hmm
trying to figure that out and try to understand that landscape is still a work in progress, honestly.
Yeah, and talking more about a little bit about your company, what kind of services do you offer to students?
Yeah. So right now we have an online student mental health course.
hmm
So students can self-enroll into the course from our website, igniteedu.net, or they can where they can go through the modules themselves. So in the course, we talk about the fundamentals of mental health. So what exactly is mental health and how it's not the same thing as mental illness.
hmm
Um, we also talk about understanding your mindset, so negativity bias, how your thoughts, feelings, and actions are connected. We go into resiliency, stress reduction, understanding different types of stress, the stress cycle, as well as strategies, right? All throughout this, you're like learning and you're practicing and doing some strategies that you can implement. Of course, you go into things like self care, right? What does that mean as a student to implement self care strategies? What does mindfulness look like? How do you practice mindfulness? Then we talk about support, I think, which is like one of the bigger modules is what does therapy look like, right? How are we demystifying therapy, right? That's not just you laying on a couch and someone taking notes, right? So breaking down what therapy is like, counseling is like, as well as just other types of support that you can get, how to support other people. And then we close off with how do you sustain it all? Like, how do you keep all of this up and really continue to do the work for your mental health, right? Because it's not just a magic thing, it's always something that we always have to work towards.
hmm
But how do we keep it fun and engaging, but also real, right? Because it's not always fun. So we have our online course that we could do. We also partner with organizations to do trainings and workshops as relates to mental health. We also work with student organizations and we do presentations for that as well. Workshops on self-care, mental health, all that kind of stuff.
Right. And you also recently launched in September, I believe, your podcast series. How did that
Oh
come about? And why did you
yeah.
decide to do
I keep forgetting about that. I need
it?
to like circle
No, that
back to
was
that.
super cool.
Yeah, thank you. And it's funny, I get reminded. I get reminded now when people say it. Like someone just texted me the other day, they're like, "Hey, I just heard your podcast." I'm like, "Oh yeah." So at the start of the pandemic, I started doing some online or virtual panels and workshops for organizations, just to understand mental health during this time. And my friend's husband owns a media company, and he was just listening in on some of those conversations that I was doing, and he was like, "You really have a special market, right? There's not much conversation happening the way that I'm doing it." So he offered to produce a short podcast series for me. And I really wanted to take a look at student mental health in different areas because I think we tend to only think of it, I think, in terms of like I do kind of with education, but how students live in a bubble, right? Like all different parts of students' lives impact the way that they show up in the world. So I like to look at student mental health in the home, right? So how does our upbringing impact the way that our mental health is, and what can parents start doing um, to address the mental health needs of their kids? I then looked at student mental health, obviously in education. What does schools look like, the school system, etc. What does it look like in the community? And that means like services like therapy, but also like community members, right? The people that are at the corner store, the people that are at the market. Like, how does everyone have an impact on just the children of their community and their mental
Hmm.
health? As well as looking at it from a man's perspective. And the reason I pulled that out is because with all of the work that I do and all the students that I've served, majority of them are girls, right? The last contract I had a little bit more boys, but it's because like I told them like if you don't look for if you don't look for boys, girls will flock. Or a lot of people only think mental health is something that girls talk about. So they would only choose girls to sign up for the course. And I was like, you have to think about your boys, right? Because boys end up suffering in silence. The stats show that boys really, that it is getting worse for our young boys. So I had a man on who runs a boys organization to talk about what it's like within, you know, the toxic masculinity and other things like that related to boys. And then, of course, from a student's perspective, right? I had a college student on who ran some really good mental health initiatives on campus, as well as things that students can take on and take ownership of of their mental health. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's great. And the series is available in YouTube and Spotify, right?
Yes. Well, it's YouTube if you want to like watch it, but then it's available on any podcast streaming platform. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can stream your favorite podcast is where you can find it. On YouTube, it's under the company's YouTube, Ignite EDU, and then on the podcast platforms, it's under the Ultimate Guide to Student Mental Health.
Perfect. And I know we covered about COVID a little bit in the other lives, but how did COVID impact your business?
Yeah. It helped it grow. It helped increase the reach. I am now, before where I was really limited by the geographic area, so I'm really focusing on the New Jersey area. I was doing some work in like Philly, but kind of just limited to where I could be. COVID allowed me to expand that reach, right? So working with people in South Dakota, people in California, people in Delaware, it just really increased my reach. One organization, for example, wanted to enroll their alumni, which are technically current college students, but they were kind of scattered about. But it still allowed us to have that really intimate moment of really being able to talk and work through mental health together as a group as they went through the course. So it really allowed me to shift how I offered my services so that it could be more accessible to more people anywhere.
Right, that's great. And kind of just to wrap up this section, where do you see your business going in the future?
Ideally, I see my company growing to a full, I guess you can call it more of like a consulting company where we are working directly with schools, districts, organizations to really revamp their mental health offerings for students, right? We're doing evaluation. So like, what does it currently look like? How can we make suggestions? How can we do trainings for your staff? To really be more mental health forward, right? And really trying to do that on a larger scale, right? So working with full districts, the multiple high schools, multiple middle schools, right? Really trying to take a big stock as that, as well as universities, right? Again, I think people do a lot of push as it relates to the like mental health professionals on these campuses, but it's everybody's job. Everybody should be able to work with students and their mental health. It shouldn't just be reserved for the social worker or the counselor to be able to do so. So I envision that we continue to grow and be able to reach districts all over the world. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I feel
Yeah.
like you have such a niche audience too, but it focuses more on the broader aspect too. It's not just students, but it's what other people can do for students.
Yeah, I'm actually getting some interest in even just the adult population, right? Because if you
Hmm.
think of education, it's a never ending journey, right? We're always learning, we're always growing. So even with it being Ignite EDU, it doesn't have to be just reserved to the student population. How can I also grow into the adult population? So I'm working right now and thinking on with a company who wants me to do like a online course, but for adults on their mental health, right? And
Right.
that kind of stuff too.
Right, that's cool. And I also want to talk a little bit about mental health tips. We all students especially are going through so many changes right now. With the pandemic not going away anytime soon from the looks of it, what advice can you give students who may be facing the possibility of going online next semester or who may not like this or who may feel
Yeah.
stressed about it?
Yeah. The biggest, I think, especially now, is having a strong support system. identifying the people in your life that you can go to when you just need someone to talk to. I think what the unfortunate thing this has done is isolated us a little bit more, right? Humans are meant to connect, right? That's why things like solitary confinement and things like that are really bad for people's mental health.
Yeah.
And it's never a good thing, right? Because we are meant to connect. We are humans and animals that need to connect in with each other. And what this does is kind of isolated that out, right? It's put us in places that we're not used to being in, right? We're used to education being a structure, it's being a school, a classroom, and now it's all changed and shifted. And I think support is going to help you not feel so alone in this transition. I think a lot of students have kind of changed it and kind of gotten used to it. Some really enjoy it, actually.
Yeah.
They say that it's helping them a little bit better. They don't have to wake up as early, or so they can manage their time a little bit more. But I think the connection piece is what's really hurting, especially now that things are getting worse, right? I think
Mhm.
we got a little bit lax, we got a little more comfortable, and now these numbers are skyrocketing again. So I think people are going to have to start resorting back to their smaller spaces, and we don't want to lose that connection. So I think that support of identifying who those people are, friends, family, whoever it may be, that are like your go-to people, and really trying to maintain those connections intentionally, like really showing up, really making time in your schedule for those types of connections are really important.
Yeah, and talking about a little bit more about these support systems, many students may come from families that may not believe in mental health or that they don't talk about this normally, or there's still this stigma around mental health. What advice can you give those students who may not have someone to talk to?
Yeah. Um, it's two things, right? So one is being able to take the temperament, I guess, of where your parents, for example, are. Some, I've learned, assume that their parents don't want to talk about it, because they haven't, or they've maybe tried and just it backfired, right? But I think especially as our relationships with our parents start to evolve as we get older, being able to sit down and have a conversation can go so far, right? So being able to attempt that, right? Actually, if you that's something that's really important to you, being able to sit down and have a conversation with your parents about why it's important to you, explaining the education, right? I think education is really important. So talking to them about it, whatever it may be, if you think you have anxiety, if you need help using their insurance to get therapy, whatever it is, talking to them about it. I think at the end of the day, parents always want their kids to be happy and healthy. And if this is a huge component that you think is necessary, having that real honest conversation with them is going to be key. If you really don't think that that's an option, like if they're just like, no, absolutely not, this is not a real thing, that is where back to your support system is going to be helpful. Who are the people that you can talk to, right? Who are the people that you can go to say, I need help, or I need an option to get the help that I need, right? So is it maybe you can't use your parents' insurance? Maybe there's someone on campus. Can you go to the campus clinic and talk to somebody there, right? There has to be an option, but having someone to help you guide you through that is going to be so key, right? Trying to do this by yourself is not helpful. You don't do anything by yourself. You don't teach yourself, right? You have professors. You don't go through life by yourself. There's no need to try and go through your mental health journey by yourself as well. So if you have a support system, whether it can be from your parents who, once they understand more, are more willing to help you, or if it's really a different support system that you do have set up, either way will be key for you. It really is unfortunate that a lot of parents do still think that way. It is a part of the things that I do as well, in terms of educating parents on mental health. But sometimes it's the reality is what it is. So then instead of feeling like you have no one to turn to, really trying to extend your network and your support system, and trying to find those people that you can reach out to.
Yeah, do you think the mental health situation among the student population has gotten better or worse, from your experience?
Uh, I
Or has
think
it not changed?
it's gotten better in terms of students becoming more aware of mental health and the conversation around it, right? I think more students are seeing things about like things like self-care, or things of like anxiety, or or just even the term mental health. I think that has increased tremendously. I think social media has had a huge impact on that, because I've recognized and learned that not everybody has on their campus a mental health professional, right? A lot of high schools who are in different communities that are underfunded don't have the ability to have a social worker or a counselor on their campus at all times, right? But things like Instagram, TikTok, etc., where you see people talking about these things, can help you just understand a little bit more about it. In terms of from the administrator's angle, I think there is progress, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think people just think if you just throw a body at a situation, it'll be okay. Just add more social workers, add more people, and it'll be fine. And I think that's so unintentional. So I think there's just still tons of work to do, but I'm glad the conversation, I think that the ability to have the conversation and bring awareness to it has grown over time.
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like the more we have people like you who are bringing these conversations to the table, the more the situation will get better and students will feel more comfortable talking
Yeah.
about this. But to end, I like to do like a segment where I ask my interviewees different questions, like random questions
Okay.
about themselves so they can get people who are watching can get to know them. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Alrighty. What is your favorite song at this moment?
Oh my god.
Or favorite
Um,
songs?
I know. I'm like I haven't listened to music. I feel like in a while. It's usually like when I drive, I listen to music. What is my favorite song right now? Oh my god, I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm trying to think. I'm not. Let's go back to that one. I'll think about it. I'll go
Okay,
back. Okay.
we'll come back to it. What are some of your favorite series or movies as of now?
Obsessed with This Is Us. I'm obsessed with Grey's Anatomy, and right now I'm like, what time is it? Because Grey starts back tonight. I am a
I
huge
saw
diehard
that.
Grey's Anatomy fan since day one in high school. So Grey's Anatomy. I love This Is Us. I just finished up Lovecraft Country. I just finished up Nurse Ratched. That was also really good. I anything that's on Netflix. I'm about to start Queen's Gambit or whatever that
I
one
heard that
is.
one's good. Yeah.
Yeah, all the Netflix ones that are like highly talked about, like you'll find me watching them. Same with Hulu, whatever networks are on, you'll probably find me watching them.
What is your favorite food?
French fries.
French fries.
Hands down.
Do you have a specific place or like Wendy's, Burger King, or do you just love French fries? Like any?
I love all of them.
All of
I
them.
do not discriminate in my French fry game.
What is a country you want to visit?
Costa Rica.
Uh, I should have known. What language do you want to learn?
Mm, that's a good one. What do I want to learn? I mean, it's so bad how much I don't know Spanish by this point. I studied Spanish in college. I studied in Spain. It's such a shame how much Spanish I don't know at this point.
So Spanish.
Yeah, so I know Spanish. I just really need to get better at Spanish. Yes.
All right. Someone said, I have to digest this as us in doses. LOL.
Oh, I know because I can get so sad.
I have
But
to
it's
watch
so
that one.
good. It is so good. I also want to go back. A country I also want to visit is Norway because that is where killer whales are, so I can go swimming with killer whales.
Right. You did
Mhm.
say you like whales. You
I
always
do love
mention
killer
that.
whales.
Since the holidays are coming up, what are some of your favorite holiday traditions?
I like games. I'm a games person. So I like, family games and like all that kind of stuff is like I always for that kind of stuff. As well as the food. I love holiday
True.
food. Give me some good ham. Oh my God. I can eat ham over and over and over again. And pie.
Pie, yes. Do you have a
Yeah.
favorite pie?
Apple.
Apple, yeah. Same.
Mhm.
Um, do you regret anything in your life? And if so, what is it?
I do not. I have zero regrets because I think everything that happens is a learning experience. Even if it was absolutely catastrophic, terrible, I learned something from it, right? I learned never to do it again. I learned something like that, right? So I think every experience is a learning experience. So I do not have any regrets.
If you could have any celebrity over for dinner, who would it be?
Michael B. Jordan. I don't know if my boyfriend heard that. 100%.
What other career path would you have wanted to take?
Um, I really like being creative. I think there could have been a space for me, and there still can be a space for me with like helping people organize and decorate and stuff like that. My boyfriend, again, he's always like, you should do something like this. I just really enjoy that kind of stuff. I love HGTV. I love anything that's organized related. So if I could have like made a career out of that, like I love spreadsheets, like anything organization related, I love it.
Hmm.
So if I could have really fine tuned that, I think that could have been a really cool business to have.
Yeah, that sounds cool. You could
Mm-hmm.
try to do both, but not right now.
I'm still trying to organize my life. So once I get that done, then I can bring on someone else's mess.
For sure. And last question, what goals, professional and personal, does Christina Broderick have left to accomplish? Kind of a big
um,
one.
I know, because I'm always trying to accomplish something. So there's a whole list of these. I think professional. I am working on, and I would be really cool once I get it done on creating a textbook for administrators to use, like a ultimate guide, right? Textbook
Right.
though. So how can they really implement a lot of the stuff that I do into their cultures within their schools and their districts as like the guiding curriculum. Um, in terms of my personal, in terms of goals, just I just always trying to work on me, right? I just turned 30 a few months ago, and that's kind of I've always been so driven by these different types of like goals, right? Doing this and doing that, doing this and doing that. And periodically I'll turn inwards and like try to do my own self work, but I think it ends up still, even within me doing the mental health stuff, it does get pushed to the back burner, right? So I think that has been a really big push for me going into this next decade of life, is being able to, I'm my podcast. Oh, thanks.
We have a fan.
Yeah, right. But just being able to really be intentional about my own personal growth, right? So whether that's my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, those kinds of things, I am looking to become more intentional with,
Mhm.
as well as swimming with orcas. People think I'm joking. Like I'm hopping in the ocean with an orca whale at some point in this lifetime.
You have to post that on Instagram. We have to be a witness of it all.
I don't know if I will, because like I know I'm going to freak out. I'm going to cry. I'm going to scream. Like it's not going to be a pretty sight. But eventually, when I do get there, someone will record it somehow. So yes, it'll be there.
Did you think of your favorite song or no?
I did not.
Oh.
No, I'm so bad. I'm always bad with those kinds of questions because I'm like, I don't. Whatever is in my head, like I'll be singing a song from like Ja Rule for like 2 weeks. And people are like, what are you doing?
I mean, that
I'm like,
counts. That counts.
yeah, I
It's
guess.
a
Yeah.
song.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
on that end, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's been a pleasure to get to know
Thanks
you a
for
little bit
having me.
more and about your
Yeah.
work. Thank you for providing those tips for students who watch this live later. And keep on doing what you're doing. And we appreciate the work you put in for students and their mental health. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Denise. This was fun.
Thank you so much. Talk to you
Have a
soon.
good
Bye.
night.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.